word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today's video, we're going to be talking about Emma Frost, the White Queen #1. We'll also be talking about Wolverine #10 and X-Men #18. Let's kick things off with Emma Frost, the White Queen #1. This is a comic that harkens back to the era of Emma Frost, roughly around the time, not too long after her first appearance in Uncanny X-Men #129, and in an era of Hellfire Club where mutants weren't necessarily openly members of the group. Some of you may or may not remember, the Hellfire Club used to be an anti-mutant organization. As a matter of fact, they're a lot of the reason why Sentinels exist. And in this particular instance, this is the time where Sebastian Shaw was running things from behind the scenes. He was acting as what was effectively a mutant in disguise. He was human to the other members of the Hellfire Club, as were characters like Emma Frost. And the only people who were very likely in the know about Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost and other mutant members of the group's actual true origins were the Inner Circle. And the Inner Circle was almost completely infiltrated by mutants. We get plenty of nods to other parts of X-Men history, like Sage's former membership with the club, and we're also introduced to some new aspects of the Hellfire Club that didn't exist prior to this. We are introduced to new characters like Noor, who is Emma Frost's mutant telepath assistant and seemingly her ride or die in this first issue, as well as Azadine, a member of the Inner Circle who may or may not be a mutant herself. That part is still debatable. And we also meet a new mutant named Arnaldo, who has powers very similar to Nightcrawler. He seems capable of teleportation, though in his case it seems like his is more of a short distance type of deal. This issue is a friendly reminder of what Emma used to be like: cold, calculating, and villainous to her core, but there seems to be a promise of showcasing her capacity for good, at least when it comes to people she gives a shit about. Not so much like her general capacity for good, because at this point, once again, she's still very much a bad person. The Hellions have not happened yet, so the whole idea of her doing it all for the children, that's not a thing right now. Though I have a feeling as the series goes, we might get some of those breadcrumbs, but I think that's not necessarily the feature for this issue. She is very much drinking the Kool-Aid in this first installment to this series. The real story, though, is that the X-Men have a whole mole inside of the Hellfire Club. And while it's not revealed here, longtime X-Men fans already know the score. It's Sage. Like, I don't want to... I'm sorry for anyone that, for whatever reason, you didn't read Extreme X-Men by Chris Claremont from back in 2004. Yeah, I know, it's a 20-year-old comic, but that shit still holds up. Yes, Sage was a mole. She was an infiltrator for Charles Xavier, and as a matter of fact, that was her whole purpose. That while Charles Xavier's X-Men were fighting the good fight publicly, out where everyone could see, Sage was working in the background, infiltrating the Hellfire Club to reach its upper echelons, to get close to the Inner Circle where Sebastian Shaw was, and then destabilize it from the inside. Now, they could totally pull a swerve here, and I wouldn't be against it, because I think it would make more sense. I feel like most X-readers, if you know who Sage is, you already know where the story is going. And I feel like even people who are only tangentially aware of Sage probably know where the story is going. So you have to go somewhere else. You have to take this to another level. And I feel like the only way to do that is to maybe have it be someone other than Sage. Like, I think, yes, it's still Sage. I think Sage is still the mole, the infiltrator, but I think it would make more sense if maybe Noor was more than maybe what she claimed to be. or maybe one of the other characters who we have encountered, because there are some characters who make some offhand mentions about whether Emma Frost can read their mind. That's a thing that comes up. Who's to say there isn't another mole? Because as we've learned over the years, Charles Xavier has had lots of little secret plans that he didn't tell anybody about. You need look no further than Deadly Genesis to know that Charles Xavier had a whole ass other X-team that he was training outside of the original Core 5, original recipe X-Men. So yeah, Xavier's a guy who loves his secrets, to the surprise of no one. Next up is going to be Wolverine number 10. This one is kind of I almost don't know where this one's really trying to go, but basically, for the most part, this issue is a lot of Wolverine walking down memory lane. And I think people who are diehard Wolverine fans, you're not gonna need any of this information because you probably already know it. Unless you're like one of those lapsed comic readers, but still like a Wolverine fan, then yeah, maybe this comic is gonna tell you something you didn't know before. But this was a comic that came out like roughly around 2001, 2002, called Wolverine the Origins, where a lot of this information actually comes from, and became Wolverine's canon origin in main continuity. But the fact that the family he came from, the Howletts, well, yes, Elizabeth Howlett is his mother. John Howlett is not his actual father. His father was someone by the name of Thomas Logan. And those two people, both incredibly and very dead, but so too it was believed that Elizabeth Howlett was also very dead, as she took her own life in a fit of rage and depression because of her son being a mutant, that being Wolverine. And in this issue, we see, just through inner monologue and then later on, a pair of ghosts who appear inside the house. Wolverine is remembering everything from his past, and those ghosts in question are the ghosts of his legal father, John Howlett, and his biological father, Thomas Logan. And in this, they attack Wolverine, and while Wolverine cannot fight them back, they can very clearly put hands on him. And that part is really kind of wild because while Wolverine has no way to fight back against these ghosts, there is someone who does seem to be controlling them, or at the very least has the ability to communicate with them in such a way that they would stop doing what they're doing. And it seems to be Elizabeth Howlett, who we learned was alive just a couple of issues ago. And what's even weirder about this is that Elizabeth Howlett, when we see her, outside of some little claw marks on her face that seem incredibly fresh, she looks about the same as she did over 100 years ago. She is very likely a mutant herself on some level or another, or maybe there's something else going on here, but I mean, it would make sense that maybe this was the case. But whatever is going on here, she seems to be able to communicate with these ghosts, and when she tells them to leave Wolverine alone, they do. So yeah, maybe that's a part of her mutant power, who knows? But I think the real rub here is that Sabretooth, while it was hinted that he was back, he's actually back. I mean, whether this is the original recipe, Sabretooth is another story. I don't know, the jury is still out on that. Because as we talked about before, Sabretooth is incredibly dead. He died in issue 50 of Wolverine during the finale of the Sabretooth War. He was literally chopped up into little pieces by Wolverine and his Muramasa blade, a blade that negates the healing factor of those that it cuts. And whether or not that's permanent is sometimes debatable, just depends on what's going on at the time. But in this particular instance, Sabretooth, he's back. And when he comes back, I don't know, there's something else going on with him too. Because he's able to, flip the lights out in such a way that Wolverine's not able to see in the dark. Now, initially when I first saw this, I was like, oh wait, is this Dark Force? Because Wolverine specifically calls out that under normal circumstances, he sees perfectly fine in the dark. And that's pretty public knowledge, I think. But when he mentions that he can't see in this particular darkness, I started to wonder, because of the ghost, is this like Dark Force? Is this like some kind of supernatural darkness that's being employed here? But the thing you gotta take note of is that when the darkness comes into play, there is the sound of a light switch, or some kind of a switch being hit in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So whatever this is, it might be more scientific than it is supernatural. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a blend of the two. But I don't think this has anything to do with Sabretooth himself, like, specifically. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. That's all I can really say about it. But, yeah, whether or not this is the original Sabretooth is another story altogether. As I said, he was killed off at the end of the Sabretooth War, though it's not to say someone couldn't just simply come back and push all his little disembodied pieces together, his dismembered pieces together, and then, you know, make him whole again. Maybe his healing factor comes back and he can just, you know, stitch himself back together. That is another story altogether. Is this a clone? We've seen clones of Sabretooth before. It wouldn't be the first time. It probably would not be the last. And you could also make a case for, you know, this being like some other form of resurrection, because the timeline on the Sabretooth War is nebulous. Because while it's said to have taken place before the finale, I don't know. It's difficult to say how Sabretooth's death falls into that, because during the fall of the House of X and the rise of the powers of 10, the mutants who were dead during that time frame, they were all mass resurrected. So Sabretooth might just be back just because. You know, it's difficult to say. And, you know, that's something I've mused about a lot. Whatever it is, this Sabretooth has beef. He wants to settle the score with Wolverine once and for all. And while Elizabeth Howlett seems, you know, to be party to what's going on, she doesn't really seem to be down with it. That's my guess, at least. We'll just have to kind of play the waiting game on this one. This is actually probably, not gonna hold you, outside of Storm, probably one of the better. This has been Wolverine, I think, even though there was like a couple of weird spots in there. Wolverine's been quickly becoming one of my more personal favorite solo titles in all the X stuff. It's definitely like, it's not quite up there with Storm yet. The stuff they were doing like with the adamantium, while it was cool, I feel like it kind of slick jumped a shark there for a split second. This is definitely more on brand for Wolverine, I think. Last and most certainly not least is gonna be X-Men number 18. This issue, I actually wondered whether we were gonna get more about what was going on with Cyclops and his X-Men going against 3K. I actually just kind of assumed that they were just gonna piece them up and get on out of here, like just piece them up off panel, because it kind of seemed like a lot of this was being played for jokes, and it kind of is. It actually still kind of is, even in this issue. But what it ultimately ends up happening here, we get a little bit of both. We don't really get to see the X-Men beat the snot out of the 3K X-Men. Not in its entirety, really. What we do get is, we get to see what actually does happen to 3K's X-Men when they lose their leader. Schwarzschild was the glue that held this team together. He was their leader. So were there protocols in place for what would happen if Schwarzschild were knocked out? And apparently there was. But the rules of the chain of command are not being followed. There are petty grievances that are falling into place. And it's all stuff that Cyclops is incredibly familiar with. As Cyclops even says this issue, he has dealt with his fair share of hotheads. And I would even go as far as to say for him that he has probably dealt with just about every hothead that has ever worn an X on their costume. So he knows what happens when it comes to dealing with people like this, and when their petty grievances get in the way of the common goal. And that's basically what happens. They all have a breakdown in the chain of command, because as some of you may or may not know, and it's brought up this issue, that these people come from Orchis. And it was actually hinted at in the first issue of X-Men that these were basically experiments from the remnants of Orchis during the fall of the House of X and rise of the powers of 10. And for those who don't know, Orchis was an organization that was largely made up of S.H.I.E.L.D. and AIM. And while they were the largest portions of it, there were other organizations like Hammer and Sword and Strike. Yeah, I actually have it right here that Orchis was 31% AIM, 24% S.H.I.E.L.D., 16% Strike, 8% Sword, 7% Alpha Flight, 5% Hammer, 5% Armor, and 4% Hydra. That was the original makeup as of, I believe, House of X number 1. Some books would kind of shift that percentage around a little bit, but for the most part, S.H.I.E.L.D. and AIM were always at the core of it. So the thing that comes out about this is that we learn Time Bomb is the one who is supposed to be the lead once Schwarzschild is out of the picture. But because Time Bomb and Galatea, they have beef with one another because of their respective affiliations, whereas Time Bomb used to work for AIM and Galatea used to work for S.H.I.E.L.D., that puts them at odds with one another. And there's also cliques within this 3K's X-Men, whereas we see that Psychovore and Galatea, they have a bond that is like, hey, if you make a move, I'm gonna make a move, and we're gonna do this together. And Time Bomb has allegiances that the others have. The only one who actually seems to not be in anyone's clique is Juice, but I thought it was really interesting how that broke down. But yeah, we don't really get to see the full-on effect of what happens when Cyclops takes advantage of this, but once the 3K X-Men start fighting each other, it's very likely this got pieced up real fast. By the time we come back to this scene, everyone is laid out. Now, the other thing that was really surprising about this is what was going on with Ben Liu. We saw in the previous issue that Ben was retrieving Piper Cobb's mother to try and, I thought, get her help in maybe talking her unborn child that's now storming around. I'm not going to call her the unborn child this whole video. She is revealed to have a name, and her name would have been Robin should she have been born. So we're just gonna call her Robin from here on out, the unborn sister. But yeah, it's revealed that no, that's not why Ben brought her. He actually brought her to give Robin a choice, basically telling her that you can take her out the game right now. You can retire this one's jersey tonight, and everything is gonna change for you, because if you do, it might make you feel better, but now you will have made this woman a martyr for the anti-mutant movement. And I think that was something really smart on Ben Liu's part, because it almost kind of put him in that same vein as a Magneto. This was a Magneto move, full stop. And we already kind of see how Ben already has a little bit of an admiration for Magneto, as we saw a couple of issues prior, or actually just an issue prior, technically. But it made a lot of sense that Ben thought to do this, and it makes sense, especially for his character, considering that he was manipulated by 3K the same way that Robin is being manipulated by 3K. They're under very different circumstances, however, it's almost the same thing. So it gives him a little bit of a way to connect with Robin on a level that none of the other X-Men can. Ben was experimented on by 3K. He had his entire life upended and any family ties and friends he had taken away from him, and he was literally turned into a madman living on the streets who couldn't control the new power he was gifted with, the ability to create these realistic illusions. So I thought that that's because of this, that yeah, what's gonna happen now? Is this the moment Robin's gonna join the X-Men? And it's not. She's not going to join the X-Men. However, I did find it interesting that her mother did actually not 100% turn on a dime, but she did regret what happened to Robin. She does actually express that she fell into her anti-mutant way of thinking because she was afraid of losing yet another child. She knew she was gonna have twins, and when she found out that she had lost one of them, it made her fearful for what she had left, which was Piper. And because she heard that mutants, this whole mutant plague thing, she just threw herself into that. She basically got red-pilled, basically, and that's how she became anti-mutant. Now, I'm sure, as I said before, if this is something that happens, I don't think she's gonna full-on 100% turn on a dime, because, I mean, let's be real, no one ever does. That shit ain't realistic. Like, honestly, even in a world where people can shoot lasers out of their eyes and teleport, leaving smells of brimstone around, and wield the power of some mad, chaotic god that makes them unstoppable, yeah, that would be still the most unrealistic thing in this book, if that were the case. I think it's gonna be a long road for the Cobb family. And for a lot of reasons, because Robin, while she does seemingly forgive her mother, she does not forgive Piper. Because Piper, by her understanding, is the reason that she no longer existed. Because she was absorbed in the womb by Piper. But I think, and real quick, before I get into what's going on here, the reason why I think it was so easy for Cassandra Nova, despite the fact that Robin was turning her back on her, to maybe join the X-Men, I think the reason why it's going to be easier is because Cassandra Nova knows how to manipulate that situation. She's been the twin in the womb. She knows how this works, and she's gonna play on the fact that Robin is not ready to forgive Piper for what she perceives as a slight against her, even if it wasn't intentional. Because it is true. Children are absorbed in the womb by potential siblings all the time. It happens. It's not an unusual thing to occur. I mean, yeah, does it happen every day? Probably not. But it does happen more often than I think people realize. And it's never intentional. Piper has no power. She has no agency. I actually think what's really happening here is that Robin's powers activated in the womb, similar to a lot of mutants. And she probably has no one else to blame for being absorbed in the womb other than herself. Now, that's not an easy way to write all this off. I mean, I think it's something that kind of creates a new nuance for the character that I think can make things interesting. We'll just have to wait and see. Cassandra Nova does end up taking her away to 3K, but I do get the impression that it was less what Robin wanted and more just Cassandra Nova taking advantage of the situation. We'll have to wait on that one. And the other thing that happens this issue that I thought was of note is what happens with Beast. I talked about how Wire had waited until everyone was out of the factory, everyone was going to be distracted, to go in there while Beast was the only one in there, and he was trying to take something. Well, it turns out he wasn't trying to take something. He was trying to take someone, and it was Beast. Sometimes with comics, things are played on the cliffhanger to be more sinister than what they usually are, and that's kind of what happened here on this one. It was played up that, yeah, Wire was going here to do some do dirt shit, and it was not the case. He came in there because he had an offer for Beast. He wanted Beast to join 3K. 3K wants Beast among their ranks, and for good reason. Beast is one of the smartest people in all of the Marvel Comics universe. He's not the smartest person, but he is definitely one of the smartest people in the Marvel Comics universe. And when it comes to mutants, I would say at least top 2. Maybe top 3 on a bad day. Especially at the time of the Krakoan era, yeah, most certainly. He was like number 1. The only way he wouldn't be is if he were standing next to like Prodigy, who usually just absorbs everyone's knowledge and whatnot. When it comes all the way down to it, Beast is that guy, and they want him. And they are keenly aware that this is not the Beast from the Krakoan era. They know this. They know this is a Beast who got a do-over at the end of the Krakoan era, that this is a Beast who hails not from the present, but from the past, from the 80s, the Defenders version of Beast. They know this, but knowing this, it makes them want him more because they know that he's looked into the things that his future self has done. And now you have a Beast who has knowledge of all the things that worked and didn't work, and now knows how to navigate those things and has a motivation to do so. That's the type of guy you want in your squad. And what I like about this too is that they're not trying to force Beast to go. They're like, nah, you don't have to leave. Whenever you're ready. Standing invitation. You just show up whenever you want. Wire, who is basically the do dirt guy of the group, they sent that dude in there on a diplomatic mission. And that is a nice bait and switch. It's a nice bait and switch. But I think the thing that's even more noteworthy of that is Beast doesn't accept the offer, but when Cyclops is talking with everybody on comms about what's going on, I was actually shocked. Beast didn't keep that to himself because he doesn't tell them why 3K infiltrated the base. He doesn't tell them the why, but he tells them that they did. Now, once again, comics usually play the cliffhanger as ominous so that you'll tune in the next time. That's what they do. That's what comics have done since time immemorial. However, I do wonder if Beast is going to tell Cyclops, like, what actually happened. Technically, I feel like he doesn't have much of a choice because at the end of the day, Beast isn't the only one that knows. Jennifer was present for what happened. She knows that Wire was there. Whether or not she knows the full story is another thing altogether, because once all of this kind of plays out, she's kind of out of sorts. But I mean, I feel like she's awake enough to have heard everything that Wire said. So I feel like Beast has to say something, or whether or not they keep this between each other is another story altogether. But I have a suspicion Beast is going to wind up taking that invite, but I don't think it's going to be for the reasons 3K is hoping. That said, we do know that coming up next, we're finally going to see the artist formerly known as Cypher, Revelation. He is going to be making his triumphant return after what was, I'm not going to lie, kind of a wet fart of a story arc in Heir of Apocalypse. He's going to be making his return. He's going to be showcasing what it is he's going to be doing in the next issue. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I feel like maybe it'll make some sense. But we know that right now, Cypher has inherited the power and the resources of Apocalypse. He still has his wife, Bay the Blood Moon from the Krakoan era. She is still by his side as his, I won't say right hand, but maybe left hand. Warlock is his right hand. That's his ride or die. Warlock is still staying by his side and seems to, be down for what's going on some level or another, though I do wonder about the long term of that. But yeah, we'll get to see how that plays out. And hopefully it's for the best. Like I said, I think this era needs a definitive, head to it. And while technically it is Jed McKay and Gail Simone really more than anybody else, but I do feel like there needs to be a more strict direction for this. And while I don't think Tom Brevoort is incapable of it, he does make some choices. And while he does seem to be indifferent to criticism, I have noticed that some of the things that even I have complained about have changed. Not to say that it's directly because of me. I don't think it's directly because of me. And I kind of get it too, because in a lot of ways I empathize with Tom, because I'm kind of the same way myself. When people give me a critique, depending on what it is, if it's something super duper mega ultra serious, sure, I'm gonna take it to heart and I'm gonna be very vocal about it. But if it's about some trivial shit like fucking comic books or something creative, I will always say that I'm gonna take what you say under advisement, or I just won't say anything at all. And I'll probably do the thing that I've been asked to do, but I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. And I kind of feel like Tom is that type of guy. We recognize our own, okay? I've done the same thing. I've literally done the same thing. So I don't know, we'll have to see. And like I said, I've talked to not everyone in the X office currently, but I've talked to some people in the X office, and sometimes they do take what I say to heart. And but at the end of the day, I want them to tell the story they want to tell. That's kind of what it ultimately comes down to. I'm gonna give my piece, but tell the story you want to tell, because obviously the story you want to tell, you're gonna be able to write that better than a story someone else tells you to write. And I'll still have my positives or negatives. And I don't know, I'm even thinking about a different way of doing that. We'll take a look at that. I don't know. Hey, stay tuned. And if you're still here, click that subscribe button. Tap that notification bell too, because hey, look, it's free, and it makes sure you don't miss out on videos like these every week, just like it helps me find more viewers like you.